Hey guys, this is Mark, and I got to give you the news because it's the most important part of investing. First, I'll give you some news I prepared. Israel has asked the Saudis to let Mecca pilgrims fly in from Tel Aviv. Israel's regional cooperation minister says that he has asked Saudi Arabia to admit direct flights from Tel Aviv for Muslim pilgrims to perform the Hajj, pointing to a possible new accommodation by Riyadh ahead of next week's visit by U.S. President Joe Biden. Israeli Regional Cooperation Minister Isawi Frij on Thursday said Israel has been working to bring what he deemed as under-the-counter contacts between the countries, based mostly on commercial interests and shared worries about Iran. More into that. Okay. In other news, commodities have been falling because China's been dumping into our markets. Big problems because President Joe Biden wants to eliminate the tariffs that were put on by President Trump. Copper, aluminum, steel prices had dipped hard in the past weeks, but today they rebounded slightly. Hopefully because President Biden will not stop the tariffs. Some big news today. Unfortunately, poor Boris Johnson in Great Britain have decided to replace him. The Conservatives say he's toxic and that he should be replaced right now. Most likely, this is going to happen quickly. However, it could take as long as October, and most of the people in the Conservative Party wants him out now. Boris Johnson did a great job against Russia, but he made people very unhappy, supposedly, with his behavior. It was definitely a coup to get rid of him. And as he put it, he said the herd was going in one direction and you cannot stop it. So, former Prime Minister John Major has added his voice for calls to Boris Johnson to be replaced immediately rather to be allowed to remain in a caretaker leader, saying Johnson's cabinet may struggle to restrain him. Major said on Thursday it was unwise and maybe unstable for Johnson's to remain in power for several months. I mean, all he did was not reprimand a guy who made a homosexual gesture to another man at a party, supposedly. And, you know, how is Boris Johnson responsible for that? It doesn't make any sense to me. Poverty is increasing because inflation has plunged 71 million into poverty since the Ukraine war. Some 71 million people worldwide are experiencing poverty due to soaring food and energy prices driven by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United Nations Development Program has warned in a new report. I say it's because they closed down the entire world over a stupid virus. The 20-page report focused on addressing the cost of living crisis in developing countries. It estimated that 51.6 million people fell into poverty in the first 3 months after the war, living off $1.90 a day less. Again, the war started when the benefits ended. They can't blame it on the war. I agree that the war has had a definite effect, but the actions of the governments across the world regarding COVID, used again so that they can get power over people, is what really created this economic turmoil. That's why economists like Cathie Wood say that inventories spiking are going to be the real problem. And she said that we're heading for a period of deflation instead of just inflation. So we'll have to really see what happens. Stupid solar, the real story. Solar has no future, unfortunately, without China and without tax rebates. It's never been a good option for energy. China's domination of solar is a risk to zero carbon future. Energy body says world must quadruple the pace at which solar capacity is growing to reach net zero emissions by 2050. International Energy Agency says countries must lessen dependence on China's production of solar panels to reach net zero emissions. What does this mean? Number one, China smelts aluminum. Number two, the glass that they make. It's going to make pollution, and it's going to increase the cost of solar. However, it'll still be competitive because oil prices are going to a minimum of 180. Most people are saying 140, but I say 180. Anyway, in a report released on Thursday, the IEA said that while China's policies and innovation have made solar power more affordable, its domination of the sector has also resulted in imbalances in supply chains. China has been instrumental in bringing down costs worldwide for solar voltaics, and as they brought the cost down, they also prevented America and other countries from producing their own solar panels. They're very smart, by the way. At the same time, the level of geographical concentration in global supply chains also poses potential challenges that governments need to address. So what this story is basically telling you is that, holy shit, we can't get our solar panels from China. Therefore, the solar industry is going to crack. Therefore, all these solar companies that are importing panels will not be able to get the installations done because they don't have any manufacturing set up in America. I'm not sure if First Solar has a manufacturing facility. I do remember back in 2010 passing their facility, I believe in Ohio, and there was not one solar panel on their roof. The solar panel industry has been made up of a bunch of shysters that basically go out, tell you they're going to give you something for free, have you sign a lease on the equity of your building, and then expect the gas companies to be crediting you to offset that lease. It's just not a good idea. I mean, we need a new innovation besides solar. There are some economic benefits. Ramping up global capacity would also bring about economic benefits. If manufacturing is potentially attracting 120 billion of investment and doubling the industry workforce to 1 million people by 2030. We already have very few people, but it's a possibility. Okay, so who's going to replace Boris Johnson? Getting back to the UK. It seems like there's a guy named Ben Wallace who's a front runner to replace Boris Johnson as the British Prime Minister. He was a British Defense Secretary, the front runner now, has previously told he thwarted a IRA bomb plot as a young soldier. The Conservative completed 2 operational tours in Northern Ireland with the Scots Guards and has said that when he was 21 and stationed there, he found a bomb in a sweet jar. Wallace told his son on Sunday in 2020 he remembers thinking, well, it hasn't gone off and I'm not dead, so that's a good thing. The 52-year-old MP for Wire in Preston North said he was on patrol in West Belfast when his colleague saw something moving suspiciously. The person placed something under a piece of wood and Wallace stated he went to investigate. So he's claiming that he's a hero. So we'll have to see what this hero can do for Great Britain and whether or not he gets in. There's a lot of news from the UK and it's very important. Okay. Let's get into the other news. Let's go to the Wall Street Journal. Fed officials agreed that the last meeting last month they would have to raise interest rates faster and to levels high enough to slow economic growth because of the worsening inflation. However, today the market closed up because I do believe that the talk now is that they're beating inflation. The food prices have come down. It's no longer a surge. It's like a slow process in the rising. So we don't know what's going to happen with the Federal Reserve. U.S. stocks ended higher after release of June meeting minutes. That was yesterday. Cryptocurrency broker and lender Voyager file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That was also yesterday. FTX, who's in crypto as well, is seeking regulators' approval to let individual investors use derivatives to place leveraged bets on Bitcoin. So we're going to have more gambling in the Bitcoin space is basically what's going to happen. Amazon agreed to add Just Eat Grubhub to a suite of Prime services in the U.S. in a deal aimed at expanding food ordering companies' reach. Rivian, and the reason why Rivian stock went up, said it produced 4,400 vehicles in the second quarter, exceeding analyst expectations as the company fights headwinds fulfilling customer orders. Travel over the July 4th weekend was not as heavy as expected. Things went pretty well. The UK's antitrust agency opened probes into Microsoft's proposed takeover of Activision. These are all stories you probably have heard already. This is good. The heads of FBI and Britain's Domestic Security Service issued sharply worded warnings to business leaders about the threats posed by Chinese espionage, especially spying aimed at stealing Western tech companies' intellectual property. This is factual. I do recall an invention that I had personally. The Chinese coming and they were the only people really there taking photographs of everything, how did it work, interviewing and so forth. They're openly in America just stealing technology for one purpose, to be the superpower. How America just lets this happen, lets their enemies in, lets them beat them economically is beyond me. So yeah, the Chinese are stealing from us. Fact. Let's see. Government, drug makers, and vaccination sites are discarding tens of millions of unused COVID-19 vaccine doses. Do you see how things change here? Everybody's crazy about COVID. Now they're throwing away the vaccines. How about if we send them to China? How about if we send them to other countries? There seems to be no need for vaccines right now. Prosecutors said a 21-year-old man confessed to targeting revelers from a rooftop. We know about this. This is Crimo. His father's in big trouble now. His mother's in big trouble, supposedly because they helped him buy the guns. He had 4 different guns, and he actually left Highland Park, drove to Madison, Wisconsin, and was going to start a shooting event there, but backed off. Why this kid drove back to Highland Park, I don't know. Obviously, he's crazy. Let's see. Prosecutors said to confess to targeting revelers. Okay, Johnson refused to quit. He already quit. We know that. Pat Cipollone will be Trump's former White House chief counsel. Will testify under oath Friday behind closed doors to the January 6th panel. So they're going to interview him, and then they'll have another TV show if he gives them some good information. It might be the point right now where everybody's covering their asses. The Biden administration expanding how pension funds can invest federal aid, part of a bailout approved last year aimed at shoring up multi-employer plans financing. So he's basically going to give money to these pensions and then say, okay, you can invest it wherever you want to. Wow. The Biden administration expanding pension funds. The White House said Biden will nominate Denver Airport Chief Phil Washington to lead the FAA. The OPEC chief died. Everybody's excited about Natalie Portman's arms in this new movie she has. In the new movie Thor. I gotta jump to the New York Times for this story. This is a woe-is me story. And I want to read the whole story to you because it's important. Among tax lawyers, the most invasive type of random audit carried out by the IRS is known only partly jokingly as autopsy without the benefit of death. If anyone's ever been audited by the IRS, you know it's pretty traumatic. Two adversaries of Trump face major IRS audits. FBI's Comey and McCabe were picked for rare program described as random. Now, I guess I was one of the lucky ones too, because I also was selected for the random audit. The odds of being selected for that audit in a given year are tiny. Out of nearly 153 million individual returns filed for 2017, for example, the IRS targeted about 5,000, or roughly 1 out of 30,000. One of the few received a bureaucratic letter with the news that his 2017 return would be under intensive scrutiny was James Comey, who had been fired as FBI director that year by President Donald J. Trump. Furious over what he saw as Mr. Comey's lack of loyalty and his pursuit of the Russia investigation, Mr. Trump had continued to rail against him even after his dismissal, accusing him of treason, calling for his prosecution, and publicly complaining about the money Mr. Comey received for a book after his dismissal. Mr. Comey was informed of the audit in 2019. 2 years later, the IRS, still under leadership of a Trump appointee after President Biden took office, picked about 8,000 returns for the same type of audit Mr. Comey had undergone from the 154 million individual returns filed in 2019, or one in about 20,000. Among those were chosen to have their 2019 returns scrutinized was the man who had been Mr. Comey's deputy at the Bureau, Andrew McCabe, who had served several years as an acting FBI director. Now, the way that the New York Times is framing this is they're saying that the audits are political. When I got audited recently, could I just turn around and say it was political? Are they saying that all of these IRS audits are political? Or somebody drops a dime on you, so to speak? Anyway, Mr. McCabe was later dismissed by the Trump Justice Department after his watchdog accused him of misleading internal FBI investigators. Like Mr. Comey, had come to perceived as an enemy by Mr. Trump, who assailed him accused of treason and raised questions about the finances long after pushing for his dismissal and prosecution. A pattern that continued even after Mr. Trump lost the 2020 election and began trying to overturn the results. So what the New York Times is saying is that Trump does this. It's Trump's fault. That's why they're getting audited. Mr. Comey and Mr. McCabe, whose spouses were also audited, the violin. Well, the spouses are getting audited too. Mr. Comey and Mr. McCabe, which is, by the way, it's lucky I don't have a spouse. Mr. Comey and Mr. McCabe, whose spouses were also audited because both couples filed joint returns, provided letters initiating their audits to the New York Times. Mr. Comey provided the Times with a privacy release allowing the IRS to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request about his case. Neither man knew that the other had been audited until they were told by a reporter for the Times. The minuscule chances of the two highest ranking, again, framing, oh my God, this is Trump doing all this. The minuscule chances of the two highest ranking FBI officials who made some of the most politically consequential law enforcement decisions in generation being randomly subjected to a detailed scrub of their tax returns a few years after leaving their posts presents extraordinary. We'd have to go to A16, and why not? Extraordinary questions. Was it sheer coincidence that the two close associates would randomly come under the scrutiny of the same audit program within 2 years of each other? Did something in their returns increase the chances of their being selected? Could the audits have been connected for criminal investigations pursued by the Trump Justice Department against both men, neither of whom was ever charged? People, I think what this article uncovers is that most of the government agencies are political. They can make things happen, not just randomly. I think that the point of this is accurate. Who gets audited? Who doesn't get audited? Why do people get picked on? Maybe some are random, but maybe some are political. Now, I am not a fan of either of these guys, but I can say that if government agencies are being used by outside forces to go after them, to hurt them, that should be illegal. And one of the problems is the unionization of most of these agencies. They toe the rope for the people that direct them at the top. It's pretty amazing. Let's see. It gets into the details of exactly what was under the microscope. 1 in 30,000, as I mentioned. Most people refund that Komen received was $347 in his 2017 return. Claimed $5,000 in accounting fees. It's a pretty big story, and really you won't know. I mean, they have to do their audit, and then you know. Let's go back to the Wall Street Journal. It's so much more interesting. Oh, here it is again. The FBI in the UK warned businesses that were being spied upon. No kidding. Speeding rate is going to be affected as far as the increase in the interest rate. So you have to be aware of that. Should they go to 75 basis points, or should they stick with 50, or should it be 25? This crypto meltdown is a big deal. Huge, big deal. Because billions of dollars are coming out of the economy. Cryptocurrency broker and lender Voyager Digital filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, becoming the latest victim of a chain reaction rippling through the crypto world. Voyager, which is listed in Toronto and operates a U.S. cryptocurrency platform, said in a court filing Tuesday that it faced a run on the bank. So many of these crypto places were offering 18% interest. It didn't make any sense at all. You knew it was coming. I did an interview with Celsius CEO, and I was asking him questions. It just didn't make any sense. Let's see. A lot of victims in the parade shooting. Democrats are pressing ahead trying to lower the cost of drugs, which is similar to what Biden's trying to do with the big oil companies. They're trying to cut the profit out of the pharmaceutical companies. I'm against that. Competition should cut it, not governments. Otherwise, you won't have new drugs coming out. There won't be enough incentive. Okay. Biden's pick for judicial post stirs Democratic opposition. The White House told Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear's office that the President Biden planned to nominate to the federal bench a Republican who has defended the state's effort to restrict access to abortions, according to newly released documents. The administrator hasn't followed through on an announcement of the nomination after the Supreme Court last month ended constitutional protections for abortion. White House discussions about nominating Chad Meredith, the state's former Solicitor General, to a lifetime role in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Kentucky has been met with anger. So, just because the guy's a Republican, but he's pro-abortion, the Democrats aren't happy about it, which doesn't make any sense to me. One of the monuments in Georgia, the country, was damaged. Okay, so hackers demand ransom for stolen Chinese police data. That was a big thing. I forget how many billions of people were affected. they stole the information. Shanghai revives mass tests. You got to pay attention to what's happening in China, because if China doesn't open up, it's going to have an effect on the oil prices as well as supplies, and that could create bigger problems. I'm surprised the president hasn't asked people just to cut down, drive less, and so forth. Macron presses raising France's retirement age. That's a big deal too, because that means they'll get less money right away. The government of French President Emmanuel Macron struck a defiant tone Wednesday, saying it planned to press ahead with contentious overhaul of the country's pension system, despite recently losing its majority in parliament. Mr. Macron's newly appointed Prime Minister, Elizabeth Borne, began her first address before France's highly polarized National Assembly with conciliatory notes and an appeal for unity. I want us to restore together the meaning and virtue of the word compromise, which has been forgotten for too long in political life. So they're fighting over there. Whenever somebody wants to raise the age, people don't get their money quick enough, you know there's a recession coming in Europe. And if a recession comes and Russia cuts off the gas, you know, Russia may get its way. Really may get its way. Many relatives in Saudi Arabia are in jail. U.S. people are asking to get them released. UK diplomat accused of spying. Iranian media reported Wednesday that the country's Parliamentary Revolutionary Guard has accused the deputy ambassador of a UK person spying in Iran. Of course he's spying. What do you think he's there? Although, you get some nice kebab there. Let's see. Just the arts. Let's take a better look here. Business and Amazon adds Grubhub. FTS asked to offer no broker crypto trading. Rivian cranked up. Airlines are having staffing problems. I don't know about you, man, but I want good pilots. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll go into the cockpit and give them foot rubs. Give them anything they want, please. When I'm up in the air, I need a good pilot, not an angry pilot. Peter Chernin said he has lined up $800 million in equity and debt financing for the North Road Company, a newly created company that combines his media assets with two businesses he recently acquired. The move is part of Mr. Chernin's aggressive push to expand his entertainment business for a particular focus. I don't know, but I don't know why you keep working when you have so much money. Norwegian Cruise is cutting back on its COVID checks. Vanguard unit agrees to pay investors for tax liabilities. This is a pretty big story. The Vanguard subsidiary will pay $6 million to Massachusetts investors who were whacked last year with unexpectedly painful tax bills. Massachusetts securities regulators on Wednesday reached a $6.2 million settlement with Vanguard Marketing Corp, a subsidiary of Vanguard, following an investigation launched this year into changes that Malvern, PA-based financial giant made to its target funds. Such funds are bundles of stocks, bonds, and cash that automatically become more conservative as investors approach retirement in January. So they made a tax problem with their Fidelity fund, or no, Vanguard fund. Microsoft and Amazon face antitrust probes. This is in Europe. I don't think that will have legs because of the recession that's going to be there. Apple plans tool to boost security. People, this is a big story. Okay, this I gotta show you this. Look, this story here. Apple plans to boost security. What does that tell you? It tells you that the Chinese have been spying with the Apple phones. I I can't. I sold my Apple stock. I bought it for a short time. Big problem. Okay, that looks good there. Let's go back to the New York Times and see what else we can find. There's an online ad slump, which is interesting, meaning that people are more interested in going to stores and so forth. The Democrats are turning on Biden, but you know what? We're going to have Biden for another 2.5 years, so it depends on what he can get done. He might actually try to cross over to the Republicans, and we might actually get something done if all the Republicans turn on him. Fed is preparing for a new rate jump. Oh, this is that big story we talked about before. In South Africa, the mystery deepens in the death of 21 teenagers in a tavern. East London, South Africa. Before he passed out amid the crush of bodies, he gasped for air as a gas that felt like fire crept into his nose and lungs. When I came to, he said, I was on the second floor and started vomiting when I realized I was lying next to dead people. Hundreds of young people drawn by notice on Facebook promising a partner. It was a murder. So they drew these people into this bar through Facebook, and then they let go of this gas into the bar. Crazy story. Read up on that, guys. You really gotta do it. The Haiti assassination still waits to hit bottom. That was definitely a hit, obviously. It wasn't just some gangsters. The warning gangs took over several neighborhoods around Port-au-Prince weeks ago, going door to door, raping women and girls, killing the men, beheading many of the adults, and then forcing the newly orphaned children into their ranks. One woman, Kenny Charles, took cover with her 4-month-old baby beneath a bed, waiting for the fighting to subside. It never did, and she fled, crossing gang checkpoints with her son raised above her head like a human white flag. There was a president that called Haiti a shithole. And there was a cab driver I know from Haiti that calls Haiti a shithole. Now, this is an opportunity for America. We should be there helping these people. It's very sad. More ethnic killings escalate in Ethiopia. That is the albinos that are being killed. They're being cut apart for their body parts. Young Koreans trying to get into the political world. Lots of trouble in Ukraine. I can't figure out exactly what's happening in Ukraine right now. It doesn't seem like the United States is focused enough on the war. It doesn't seem like the American people are focused on it. If they're going to let Putin just take over Ukraine as just a way to end the war, it's not going to end there. Because Putin has already said that this is just the beginning. Biden spoke to the basketball player Griner's wife. China seeks to pre-exempt sanctions in case of Taiwan clash. Huh. So they're saying, oh, we're going to have a clash in Taiwan, but don't take it out on us. Many Hispanics are emerging as politicians in Texas, and you're going to see more and more of that because they're really taking a foothold. There's more and more Hispanics in the country. So a book ban surge. Librarians are being considered criminals because of the books that they wanted to have in the library. Again, this is more about the Don't Say Gay Act. Gotta stop fighting people or else we're never gonna get anywhere. And that's gonna be the news for today. So I'll give you more news tomorrow. I think I got most of the relevant news. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks so much. I'm Mark from Newsweed. Remember, it's never as it seems. Newsweed.com.